Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Aaron.
We're taking a look at the giant Railways of the World 10th Anniversary Edition by Eagle Gryphon Games.
All aboard!
All aboard!
Oh, guys, the train is leaving! Railways of the World is a track building, pick up and deliver style game where players are competing to make these connections between cities so that they can pick up these resources and carry them to other towns and get victory points for them.
But probably what I like most about this game is how economical it is. Mm-hmm. Because it's so far it's the only game I've ever played, unless you've played Age of Steam or Steam, in which case it doesn't really count, where you start with nothing. You have no money, and you can do whatever actions you want that require money. You just have to take out that much in bonds, that you're going that much in debt to do that action every time, and that debt stays with you for the remainder of the game. And that's one of the most clever factors about it, is that while this is, it's a train game, it makes me think of Ticket to Ride. Sure, but there's so much more economics to it than you'd think just from looking at it.
And much like real life, when you get that first credit card, it is so tempting to be like, I can do whatever I want. I'm going to build a thing all the way across the mountains and score all these things. Like, haha, guys, look how great I'm doing. You're just doing nothing. Oh, I have 0 APR for 6 months. I don't need to worry about that right now.
Yeah, and that's one thing with the bonds, not being able to get rid of them. I couldn't wrap my head around it at first. I'm like, okay, but what if I have money? I can just pay off the bond. You're like, no, you cannot get rid of the bond. I'm like, okay.
This is for life. When the game is over, you take that home.
So that kind of scared me, and like having to pay back money every turn for things I've done in the past. So I definitely tried to play conservatively and only take out, bonds for investments that I really wanted to make. Like I slowly built up my actual engine and, went to level 2 and level 3 a little later in the game after I put down enough track that I could actually utilize that.
What you're saying there about going real slowly with it, it's so tough to decide whether I want to bum rush to get stuff done first, because there are all these cards out there that give you bonuses for being the first one to deliver a cube or the first one to make a 3-chain, delivery or whatever, that it's such an incentivization to do that. But again, you're going to go into more debt to do that. It's not saying that it's wrong, because you can win with that strategy. If you do a couple really clever moves, you can, take out not as much debt, build and do what you need to do to get those bonus points, and then start slowing down and just, deliver a couple cubes a turn to kind of, keep your engine going. It is one of the big faults of that, though, is that it does benefit from multiple plays. Mm-hmm. If it's your first time and other people have played it before you, they're going to have a little bit of an advantage on it.
So my first time playing this game, I did fall into that trap where I was looking at, there's a couple different ways to get points, delivering or your secret agenda you have or something.
The major lines.
But the major lines that if you can connect this to this by yourself, the first one to do it gets these points. And I'm like, oh, that is going to be my strategy. I'm going to try to get as many of those as I can because there are so many points there. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'll go into debt now, but the points will make up for it. And that would have worked, except for the fact that income goes up and then it starts coming back down again. And I got into a point where I was like, oh, well, mathematically, I can't save myself because I'm like, the more points I get, the less money I'm getting. And my income is now not enough to cover my debt. And since I'll never actually pay off this debt, it's with me for the rest of the game, I'm just going to get deeper and deeper because I have to take out more loans to cover my previous loans, that then next income round I have to take more loans to cover those other loans. And I snowballed to the point where I had, negative almost 40 points?
You had negative 35.
From bonds. It was ridiculous. So that's the biggest thing to watch out for, is that balancing that debt and looking at when you get your income, because if you shoot ahead on the points, all of a sudden you're past the point of growth and you're going to the point of reduction.
I was saying it is kind of funny because that game, I didn't do that well that game because I just arbitrarily was like, I'm going to try to take out this least amount of bonds I can. That wasn't even my goal card, but I was like, I'm going to try it. And that is a good strategy to try and take out the least amount of bonds, but you have to really examine the board and say, if I take out the smallest amount of bonds I can to build from here to here, there's a lot of cubes that I can deliver slowly and creep back up, so I don't need to take out bonds to do more. So I was just like, I'm gonna take out the least amount of bonds I can. And I think Wes has the exact opposite strategy. He's like, everything's a bond. I owe no money. I take out bonds for this. I take out bonds for that. Devil wears Prada. Wes had a really good point there in that not only was he like, oh, I totally screwed myself where every round I'm going to need to take out more bonds to cover the debt that I already have. Other players can screw with you as well. Because if your chain is in the middle of another chain where other players are, as long as they're starting on their color, they can use your train to move a cube, amidst their here, my link, your link, my link. So at the end of the game, I was like, well, Wes, I'm giving you points. He's like, every point you give me pretty much puts me back another step on income track, so stop it. I'm like, I don't think I can, man.
It definitely is interesting using other people's routes and giving them victory points for using it to deliver your goods. I didn't really use it too much, but I could see how you can really, use that to push people over the edge and make them start getting that negative income. The other thing you really want money for, at least I did, was for bidding for turn order, because depending on what of these cards came out into the lineup, taking one of those cards could actually save you money. Like I could bid $3,000 to go first and then get the card that reduces the cost of a train engine, or get the one that does the free build a city, and that costs $10,000 normally. I can do it. I have to take the card as my action, but why not? If I'm going first, I'll do that. I'll get more cubes on the board. It extends gameplay if, I want gameplay to go on. If I'm, kind of falling behind, or, I'm already got the lead and I want to end the game quick, I'm going to start delivering things and get all these posts out here and dry up all the cities so that, the game ends.
I will say, I think that the cards that you could get that gave you, alternative objectives or bonus points or, little mini goals was kind of a redeeming factor for me in this game, because I'll be honest with you guys, we have that kind of relationship now. I don't like train games. Just telling me, oh, it's a train game, I'm instantly don't care. Nope, I'm done. That being said, Tom really no, we have to play this, we need to review it. This is such a good game. Just went on, and it's streets ahead of Ticket to Ride. I can see the similarities, and I kind of playing it yeah, it's like Ticket to Ride, but more so. And after playing through it and a couple times and everything, it's way more than Ticket to Ride. Really, the only comparison is the fact that there are trains involved, and you are at some points connecting point A to point B. But there's so much more on top of that, and really the economy is such a big part of it, and it almost has a Ponzi scheme feel to it, which I think is funny comparing those, because this is way older than Ponzi scheme. Not actual Ponzi schemes, but you know what I'm talking about.
It started in the
TMG
20s,
game.
technically.
But this does, don't just look at the trains and be oh, it's like Ticket to Ride, but bigger. Because, one, you will be very disappointed when you go into this being I love Ticket to Ride, let me play this game. But also, I don't want you to feel oh, I hate Ticket to Ride, I don't want to play this, because that was kind of where I came from. And I was definitely, after getting my mind wrapped around it, pleasantly surprised at how much different it was. I don't want to oversell that and be this is such a great game, because at the end of the day, I'm kind of stagnant towards it. I'm happy to play it. I'm never going to request it, but if you want to play it, I'm not going to set out for a round. One, it'll be a long round. And two, it is a solid game. So I definitely recommend you guys at least give it a fair chance and don't just ignore it because it has trains.
To kind of counteract what Wes just said, now we haven't gotten into our final thoughts yet, but obviously I liked the game a lot more than Wes did, and that comparison to Ticket to Ride is almost mandatory just because of the assumption of the train gain aspect, but to almost say that it's Ticket to Ride but more is a slightly facetious in that, again, the only comparisons is that there's trains and there's, tracks that need to be connected, but the method by which you connect and the motivation behind the connection is totally different. In Ticket to Ride, it's set collection, and here it's simply action selection. So you can spend whatever money you want, which actually you don't really have, but you can take out the loans for it. So it's just I can go anywhere I want, really. So I just have to decide which is the best use of my time, my actions. Should I should I even start building this right now, or should I take this card first, build it in action later where it could possibly be cheaper? The take a try comparison is gotta have to happen, but it's not even in the same ballpark.
So as you're saying, you can build anywhere you want and go to any city you want just because you want to. And mainly those decisions you're making are based on the random cubes that are put out there. And you're gonna sit here and analyze where the cubes are. You're like, okay, there's a yellow cube here, which is 2 train lengths away from being able to deliver there. So that could give me 2 victory points if I do that. So maybe I should build some tracks here. How much is that going to cost me? And then all the different terrains cost different amounts of money to actually develop tracks on it. So you have to, decide where you want to build your route. Sometimes you're going to want to go around the mountain, or you're just like, screw it, I'm just going to take out the extra bonds and go straight over that mountain. It's going to cost me extra, but it's going to give me a shorter route, and I'm going to actually be able to, connect more cities that way. Leveling up your trains to be able to go those distances is another, layer on top of it. That, just because you built a track all the way across the country and you're like, oh, I can deliver this cube now, you actually have to have an engine that can travel that distance. So you're going to have to pay a lot of money to upgrade it multiple times to do that. And it takes a lot of money. So you're either taking out bonds, or you're going to have to, have those victory points already making you income.
What you were just talking about there is, like, in order to build yourself up to the point where you're kind of set, like you've built all your tracks and your train is all the way up there, you have to have been delivering goods and making money along the way. And actually, it is mentioned in the rules to not let a player run away with the Northeast. To just, because look at how concentrated it is there. It says you have to have at least like 2 or 3 people, competing for that. Because we kind of did that where one guy was starting to get a lot of the stuff there, and we were like, screw it, I'm just gonna, most of us kind of went out here. We fought out here a little bit, but everything was more spread out, so it was less conflict. And he owned like almost everything from Boston down to like Savannah. And then towards the end of the game, he was just like, okay, gonna deliver 7 points. Okay, gonna deliver 7 points. And we were like, oh no! So that's, again, just speaking to the fact that if you know the game, you're gonna have a little bit of an advantage. So when sitting down with new players, you should say that. That is kind of one negative. The only other, few negatives that I have are, first of all, the paper money. Absolute garbage. I know that Eagle Griffin does have metal coins, kind of generic, on their website that I'm definitely going to get to replace the paper money, because I kind of threw up when I saw paper money. And also, while this is the 10th anniversary and it's a redrawn map, everything, the components are really high quality. Eagle Griffin always has really high quality components. The trains look good, well, with the exception of the money. The trains look really good. The map is redrawn and it's really pretty and colorful, but it's also extremely authentic. So the bonds do look kind of drab, because that's what it was like back then. And it is a map. So while it's colorful, for a map, it's still a little bit drab. And it's trains, it's like a weird type of nerdy. It's like a historical nerdy, which may be a turnoff to a lot of people. I think it kind of was a turnoff to Wes, even so. So if you can get over that hurdle, though, I think the gameplay is totally well worth it. And I will say that the Mexico map is how you should play 2 players. Don't play 2 players. The Mexico map comes with
You play as 2 players?
Yeah, you can play it 2 players, but you don't want to play it on the big map. Yeah, it's really cutthroat at 2 players. If you have to play it 2 players, play it on the Mexico map, but really 4 and 5.
However, the cutthroatiness was one of the redeeming factors for me in this game. The fact that there is a surprising amount of blocking that you can start seeing, like, oh, I wonder if his secret objective is this, maybe I'll cut him off. Or, oh, he's going for this. And the fact that, like, you, especially on the bigger maps, you, like, build your tracks in sections. Mm-hmm. So, like, okay, I'm going to build here, and I can waste a turn just building a track, cutting through the middle, or, like, blocking off what you're trying to do. Not because I'm trying to do anything with it, but purely just to mess you up and to make you spend either more time or more money accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish. And I think that, honestly, it's something that Ticket to Ride has a lot of, too. They're like, oh, well, I'm going to come here, too, because there's only so many ways to enter the city, and if we take all of them out, you'll never get there. And so that does, historically, I don't know if there was a lot of cutthroatiness with trains back in the day. I think it was more...
It probably was.
I would think so.
Okay. I would think it's more just trying to get to California.
That's something that we could Google, but we're not gonna. Actually, what's funny, the first time I played this with Greg and them, when we did the build a track action, we would be like, I'm trying to connect Raleigh to Charleston, so I'm going to put a track at the entrance of Charleston and a track at the entrance of Raleigh, and we met in the middle until we found out that you can't do that. We're like, this isn't that cutthroat, just do it like this.
I think Railways of the World is an excellent economy-based train building game. Like it's definitely one I want to play again and again because there's just so much like deep strategy that you start to build over time where you can actually see what routes you want to build and what lines you want to go for, or using the cards to your advantage, or just like trying out going for longer deliveries or going for the short ones. Like there's so many different strategies that multiple plays will definitely reward you, and you're definitely going to get a lot out of it, especially if you're playing with a group multiple times.
I definitely didn't hate it.
I definitely think I liked this game the most out of the three of us.
No.
What? But I had absolutely so much fun playing this game every time. And you know what? It surprised me because, again, by now I have to throw out the whole judging a book by its cover thing for games, because I was like, not even just the Ticket to Ride comparison, but that sort of drab, like, I'm not a history nerd. What level of nerddom am I willing to go to play board games? But this was so much fun, and I already told you what some of my negatives were, right? I guess that it's a little bit drab in the way it looks. I mean, it's really high production quality, the paper money, but I'm like trying to pull some negatives out of it because I had so much fun playing it that I'm like, well, not every game is perfect. I mean, I guess this is a problem. It's a little bit random. The person who knows what they're doing gets a little bit better. But the only other negative is that, it is so huge and grandiose, which is awesome, but it may be a problem for some people because, like, look at this. See this table right now? The map pretty much takes up the entirety of the table.
And there's a lot more stuff that needs to happen on the table than the map.
There's this that needs to go out there. You need areas for your cards and for your train things. But I really can't recommend this game enough for people who want a bigger, meatier game. This is not something to jump straight to right after Ticket to Ride. Because again, we're making that comparison, but it's a comparison that we ought not make. Because this game has so much more deep strategy and complexity and really, really tough decisions. And probably the best thing about it, well, not the best thing about it, but one thing that I personally love about it a lot is how well it handles the reality of debt. How debt can be a tool and can be necessary in certain instances. But if you use that money wisely and you stay on top of it and all that stuff, you can do great things with it. But if you screw up, it can totally bite you in the butt. It would be great to teach to like a 14-year-old when they're when they're first trying to learn about how finances work and about how debt works. It's like, look, there's nothing wrong with taking out money if you utilize it correctly and use it to get more money and you do stuff with it. But if you're just taking it out so you can buy the fancy things that you really, really want, that's going to bite you in the butt later on. So basically, Dave Ramsey highly recommends Railways of the World 10th Anniversary Edition.
So if any of that sounds good to you, we are going to have a purchase link in the description box down below. You should go look for it.
And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe so you'll never be bored. All aboard the Never Bored train! Yep.